you're struggling with traditional marketing thinkers and bringing new ideas to them and getting some pushback, in this video, I'm going to show you the 4 steps that I've been doing for the last 8 years to produce results. What's up, guys? I'm Kyle Milan. It's Tuesday, so it is time to talk about industrial marketing because that's what we're doing on Tuesdays at noon. For those of you that are new to the content, I've got a YouTube channel with over 1,500 videos on it. We've been doing it for about, 4 or 5 years, over 800,000 views on the content, strictly talking about everything you guys need to know about industrial marketing and industrial sales. Here's the cool thing about traditional thinkers. It's basically all of manufacturing for the most part. If we just say manufacturing, industrial in general, regardless of your vertical, regardless if you're in a service, a product, regardless if your company is $1 million a year, 100 million a year, or $1 billion a year, in general, the mindset is traditional. What do I mean by traditional when it comes to marketing? I mean referral-based, slow sales process, just do events and trade shows, maybe going back old school to the 2000 era where you're talking like ThomasNet profiles. Oh, I got my profile on ThomasNet for $500 a year, $500 a month. And when people Google search, they're going to see my ThomasNet profile. Those days are gone. The manufacturer's directory back in the Midwest, when I was in Illinois selling, had that manufacturer's directory, and the boss would be like, hey, Kyle, you got to just take this directory and head out there. This is back in 2006, 7 era. Head out, pound pavement, and go after people and just do it based on the directory. Those days are past. Now, do some of those things work? Yeah, absolutely. Some of those things work. But for the most part, you have to get into what's working these days. So every conversation that we have, and this is why I can speak on this literally for hours, every conversation that we have with people starts with some sort of traditional mindset. So discovery calls with companies, it's like, what are you doing? What do you want to do? And they usually come to us and like, this is what we're shooting for. This is what we've been doing that's working. This is what we want to enhance on. Or sometimes companies come to us and say, we don't know. And that's perfectly fine, because if you don't know, you know that you can do something to change and you're open to listening to new things that could work. So let's start with bullet point number 1, like a digital whiteboard. How about that? Digital whiteboard. All right, so number 1 is the problem. With any sort of sales process, convincing anybody of anything, you first have to identify the problem. This is your business life. This is your personal life. This is your own mind. You have to identify a problem. Now, when it comes to your personal life, you can create problems when there aren't problems, right? Like, I want this new thing, this new tech, this new gadget, this new building for business because I think that I have a problem. So sometimes it can be a slippery slope. But when it comes to talking to people that have a traditional mindset, you first have to try and ask questions to get them to identify that there is an issue. Smart people say never sell to the unsellable. 100% agree with that. My job is to not convince you over hours and hours and hours in a conversation that you have a problem. That is not my job. My job is to try and identify a problem. And if you're like closed ear to it, I don't even want to waste my time. I don't want to waste your time, because if you're not going to be thinking about it, then there's no point of actually talking through it. So why would I waste your time if you're like, no. So we'll do cold calls for people. I'll do cold calls for people, and I'll be like, hey, want to talk to you about your marketing, your sales, your whatever. And people be like, no, we're good. We're booked out for a year. Okay, they don't have a problem that they know about. So I'm not even going to try and waste my time. If you guys ever need something, let me know. I'm going to send you an email. So if you're presenting a new idea to upper management, to owners, to whoever, you first have to be like, man, ask them some questions about their marketing. Ask them some questions about the efficiency of the floor, or ask them questions about how much production time are they using? Oh man, it seems like the orders are slipping off, or it seems like there's an issue with this aspect of the business. We've got less leads. Would you agree that we've gotten less leads over the last year? Or, hey, we just went to that trade show. It seemed a little bit slower. Like, we were just at NPE, we were just at IME, we were just at FabTech, IMTS, whatever. Didn't really seem like we got as many leads. So you kind of start the conversation by forming a question with it and trying to get them to think about it too. Or you can go to them, if you don't want to get their buy-in, you can go a different route. You can say, we have a problem. This is our problem, and we need to figure out a solution to it. But it's a lot easier to work with somebody and convince them to try something new if they identify the problem themselves. And you can assist with that. This is just basic sales tactics. You can assist with that and put stuff in front of them and give them information and start the conversation. It'd be like you're trying to change behavior in anything in your life, a spouse, a girlfriend, boyfriend, one of your kids, etc., a good friend of yours. You're trying to get them to change behavior, change mindset, think about things differently. It's a lot easier and you'll get less pushback if you go about it and try and involve them in the decision making process and get them to say, yeah, you know what, I think that we do have a problem here. Like, let's look at these numbers. Is this good? Is this down the track that you want? No, dude, that's definitely not good. Okay, it seems like we might have a problem here. So you can't solve anything if you don't first discover a problem. Like, that's kind of like step one, right? Number two, let's go into number two. You need to create a full strategy. Full strategy. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is if I came to you and said, hey, it seems like your leads are down, or you came to me and said, we're having this issue with X, Y, and Z, and it seems like the leads are down, or it seems like you're not getting as much activity. I think maybe we should try doing something with social, or maybe we should start creating some videos. If I come to you and say that, you're going to be like, yeah, maybe that could be a solution. But if I come to you with a full strategy, okay, look, I've been watching Kyle's content about industrial marketing. He lays out all the steps on how to create a strategy. We have videos for that, how to do things on social, what to do with SEO, website, email, automation, PPC, everything, right? I lay it all out. I've been watching this guy's content and I laid out this strategy. So number one, we're not getting as much traffic from these sources. We need to make this change to the website because I noticed that this type of activity on the site, time on site, where the people are coming from, what page are they going to, it's lower than what it was. So I'm going to create a full strategy. We need to do this to the website. We need to start posting on social 3 days a week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I'm going to start posting short clip videos because everybody's saying that videos are what's most engaging. I've seen it in LinkedIn. Everybody's engaging more on videos than it is just a graphic or a picture, unless you're a girl, of course. If you're a girl and you post a picture up, you get 1 million people to like it. But you lay it all out and you say, these are the steps that we need to take. I've been doing the research. I've done my homework. As a manager, as a owner, as somebody above the person presenting the information, if they take the guesswork out of it and they come with a full plan, I'm going to listen more to that full plan than if you just like, yeah, maybe we do this, maybe we do that. So it's the difference between a strategy session. If you want to strategize with somebody, be like, hey, let's throw some stuff up on the whiteboard. Let's talk through these issues, etc. But if it's my role in the company to provide impact and results in this accountability, this specific area, then I want to come with the full strategy. It does not have to be a 20-page strategy documentation or a 50-page PowerPoint. It doesn't have to be that in depth. You just lay it out in simplistic terms. Look, this is what we're seeing. I've looked at competition. This is what they're doing. I've watched these people that are saying do these things. This is what they're saying to do. Based on all of that information and our existing performance, this is the strategy I think we should do. This is the timeline that I think we should do it, and present it to them like that. You're going to get a lot more buy-in if you make it more about you doing the research, taking some of the thinking out of it, already coming to them with an idea, and then getting the conversation going back and forth. If you can come with some information to support it, that's great. But if you're like, hey, we're doing nothing, I think we should do this, do as much research as possible to then create that strategy and walk it into the people that are going to be making the decision and say, this is the strategy I think we should do for the next 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, whatever. A full strategy is a lot easier to have a conversation around than just strictly ideas. Because what will happen with traditional thinkers is you come in, you're like, I think we should start doing more activity on social media. They're going to be like, our people are on social media. I don't think that's a good idea. But if you go to and say, hey, look, our competition is doing this in social media. It's getting this level of engagement. And I was looking for potential customers on LinkedIn and I found them. And I think that based on this information that I did research on and these people that I talked to, we should do this many posts a day to start, then maybe month 2 or 3, increase the number of posts. I'm going to need these types of resources. It should generate these types of results, and you just lay out the strategy. So a full strategy instead of some random ideas is a lot easier if you need to warm people up to it, because that's another aspect of it. somebody that you can't just go in and say, here's a strategy, and have them be like, yeah, let's have more conversation around that. If you need to warm them up to it, then you start to do it in small bite-sized pieces. You break your strategy into multiple phases. Phase 1 is do this. We're just going to post to social 2 days a week. Phase 2, if it goes well, phase 2 is going to be, we're going to go live on social once a month, once a quarter. Or phase 2 is, I'm going to create short video content from my phone. It's going to take nothing to you. It's going to cost us no money. I'm just going to test this out. That's phase 2. Phase 3 is we're going to be doing this email campaign. We're going to be making these amount of calls, or we're going to go and walk this trade show because I want to exhibit next year. So I want you to give me some money to fly here and stay here for 3 days so I can do research and recon on the trade show as a whole to build up my strategy. So if somebody comes to you with all this information, you can't be like poo-poo on that idea and be like, nope, none of that matters. You have to come with some sort of response back, like, you know what, this person did the research. I'm going to give them my full undivided attention, listen what they have to say, and then maybe make little micro tweaks here and there in the strategy, but let's build on it together. Number three, you better come with some good sources. You better come with some good sources. Who's a good source? You got to get people that know their stuff. And I don't mean general marketing people. I mean people like me and other creators that are doing it for this industry that say, this is what works right now. So you can go and say, look, I read these books. I watched this famous person on B2B marketing, and upper management may say, yeah, that sounds like it could work. And then you go and implement it. It's like, it didn't work the way you thought. But if you cite your sources and say, look, we've been doing this for 8 years. We've been producing these amounts of results for our clients. We produce this much content. I lay out the entire strategy of what's working today right now. Things that I'm saying today are different than what they were 2 years ago or even 12 months ago. And you can say, I've been watching this guy, or I'm watching this team, or I'm watching this person, and they're saying that this is what's working. And so based on that information, plus some research that I've done on my own, plus looking at our performance, this is why it's supporting my strategy. So this all goes together, right? So you first have to identify the problem. You can do this in your meeting with them. Identify the problem, cite your sources for your full strategy, right? So you're creating a full strategy, and I will be very cautious on the word full strategy. I mean just a strategy, right? It doesn't have to be, like I said, 20 pages. I created the strategy based on these people saying this information. This is what I think we should do. But you got to have credible sources. You can't just be like, oh, I just thought of this on my own. Like, if you don't have a ton of experience in this, if you're not seasoned in it, like, where are you getting your information from? You're reading about it, but you don't have somebody that's actually applied it. So they're going to be less likely, if they're a traditional thinker, they're going to be less likely to take what you said and actually put it into action. They're going to be like, oh, you read it. It's a theory. It's not practical. But if it's like, hey, I've been watching Kyle's stuff. I've been watching MFG Tribe's channels. They're posting all the stuff of what's working. They've got data to support it. They've got case studies. Let's jump on the phone with them. We'll walk you through it, and we can put rhyme to the reason and tell you exactly what you need to do. But you got to start with some good sources. Number 4, your last hope is to use data. Nobody can argue with data. I say this all the time in discovery calls. That's the great thing about data, is as long as the person that's inputting the data isn't lying, data does not lie. It has no emotion. It just is. It's a fact. You can't argue with how much traffic came to your website if the website shows this is the amount of traffic you came from. You can't argue that something's not working if the data shows that this source of traffic, this referral source, this magazine, this campaign, this advertising, this email, whatever, brought in this much traffic. You can't argue that. It is what it is. Then from there, did it convert into a lead? Yes, it did. We had 100 people hit the site and 70 of them converted to a lead. Or we showed our ad to 1,000 people and 50 of them converted to a lead. Cool. The data is showing that this is working, but go to that next step. After it's a lead, from a lead, it goes into a sales qualified lead. So you've got marketing qualified lead. Person says, hey, I want to talk to you about what you do. Does not matter. Your product, your service, whatever. I want to talk to you. That's a lead. From there, it's sales' job, and sometimes marketing, but sales' job to qualify them and say, let's have a conversation. Identify the problem. Do we have a solution? Are you a good fit for our customer base, etc.? Can we help you? Yes. Now it's a sales qualified lead. So it's now converted from a lead to an actual opportunity, a deal, an RFQ. So you can't argue with that. If I can show you that, I don't know, Instagram ads, TikTok ads are producing RFQs for your industrial business, initially you'd be like, dude, there's no way that TikTok ads would do that. And I would 1000% agree. But let's just say that it did. Let's say that a TikTok ad for a machine shop or a robotics company or conveyor solution generated leads that converted into opportunities, and it went into your pipeline as actual opportunities for you to quote and close. You would not be able to argue with that. So if I then said, here's my strategy, do more TikTok ads, you'd be like, of course, it makes sense. Data doesn't lie. You always have to go back to the data. Some things you can't, like, you got to be a little bit cautious on. The data is not showing it the right way. So for instance, I just started doing this new activity. I just started doing these emails. I just started doing these calls or these ads or these social posts, and then give it 2 weeks and be like, nope, no deals came through. You have to be patient to a certain degree. You have to be able to say, I'm going to let this thing go. The strategy is 6 months, and I'm going to see if I can see a trend. Because just because you start posting stuff, just because you start running ads, doesn't mean that the market's going to be like, yes, I want it. Depends on if you're going after transactional types of things, possibly, right? If you're like, we have this thing to sell, we have this piece of equipment to sell, and there's a market that's looking to buy it, and I'm going to put an ad in front of them. I'm going to first get more web traffic, increase time on site, decrease my bounce rate, which is how many times people are going to your site and then leaving after the first page. Those numbers are going to show that I'm going into the right direction, and then I'm going to start to see deals and opportunities eventually from it. But if you don't give it 2, 3, 6, 8 months to let it actually mature, then you're going to be stopping it before it actually gets there, right? It's like watering your grass every day from a seed. You got to let it time, you got to give it time to grow, but you can't see it. But underneath that soil, that grass is growing, but you can't see it unless you tear up the grass. So keep doing what you're doing, looking for those results. But then at some point, it's like, all right, we've been doing this for 12 months and we've got no leads and then definitely no opportunities. Then you could say this is not working. So when something isn't working, you have to say, is it the execution of the strategy that's not working? Is it the copy on the ad? Is it the type of LinkedIn post? Is it the fact that we're not getting followers with social? Your company page isn't growing followers because your people aren't growing their connections, and when they share it, they're not getting actually in front of people. It's not just you post something on LinkedIn and everybody sees it and the right people. You got to do the work. So is it a failure of execution? Is it a failure of the strategy, or is it a failure of creative? So it's one of those things. Either the strategy is wrong, the creative is wrong, or the execution of the strategy is wrong. It's one of those things that is broken. Go through each one and figure out, I'm going to make a variable adjustment here, a micro adjustment there, etc., and then see what you can do. But nobody can argue with that. If I walked into any traditional thinking company and said, this is your current state, your leads and deals is going down, your revenue is going down, and I implemented these things and it's starting to come back up and we've got some deals to close from it, the only way that somebody would be able to argue against it is if they don't like the quality of the deals coming through. Like, yeah, you're bringing deals, but they're not the right size of deals. Like, it's generating money, but not an ROI positive for what we're putting in, or it's not fast enough. We're spending $100,000 to generate $3,000 of business. That's not a good ratio. But if you can't argue, if I say it's ROI positive, it's bringing in money, it's bringing in revenue, anybody that owns that business or is an upper management would say, keep throwing money into that thing. Keep doing what you're doing, and what else can we do to make it more or make it faster? That's all it comes down to. So identify the problem, create a full strategy, cite your sources, and ideally at the same time, you want to use data. So if you can bundle all of that together in one conversation, or start with a problem identification first, then come back with your strategy, your sources of why you want to do those things, and data to support why you want to do it. So in your initial strategy session, you're going to be saying stuff is going down. So that's your data to support it. And then say, this is how I'm going to track it. These are my KPIs. I'm going to be tracking impressions, website visits, leads, deals, opportunities. And if you don't have a system to track it, then you need to say, as part of your strategy, I'm going to get a HubSpot license. I'm going to partner with MFG Tribe because they're the ones that know how to do it. And if you don't want to, get a free one or get a starter. It's like $30 a month. So I'm going to track all this activity through this HubSpot dashboard to be able to show to you, Mr. Boss or Mr. Owner, that it is going to start going in the right direction. I'm going to look at all my trade show leads and I'm going to put them into HubSpot. I'm going to identify them and then I'm going to work them through my pipeline from initial lead into a qualification phase, into an RFQ phase, into a quote sent phase, into a close won, close loss, or nurture. And even if it's not won or loss, you still put them in a nurture phase. The nurture phase is they haven't made a decision. They didn't tell you no, they didn't tell you yes, they need more time. That's a nurture. But if you don't have all that in your strategy, it's like you can present the information to me and say, Kyle, this is the strategy that I think we should do. I'm like, okay, cool. And then I'm going to ask, how are you going to track performance on this? And if you can't come to me, if it's not part of your strategy and I have to ask that question, I know you're not thinking like 3 steps down the road. So you got to think, how am I going to measure this activity? How am I going to use the data in my favor? I'm using the data in my favor to show we're declining, but how am I going to use the data in my favor to show that we're increasing? And all it really matters at the end of the day is quoting opportunities and close business. So if your metrics and KPIs are like, I'm going to do impressions and engagement and likes and clicks and stuff like that, that's cool. If you're going after brand awareness, that's fine. Push your brand out on social, impressions, likes, engagement, etc. But if at some point in your KPIs, you're not tracking traffic to the site, or skip the site, don't even send them to the site, straight from social, straight from LinkedIn into your pipeline for an RFQ, if you're not tracking that, there's no way that you're going to be able to prove to me that the money that I spent as an owner is worth it in the long haul. You're trying to change somebody that's thinking traditionally. You have to come, identify the problem, create the strategy, use data to your favor to prove something isn't working, and then to prove something is working. Once you start implementing these things, have Google Analytics set up, try and use HubSpot or another CRM system, build out the dashboards and reports. The phrase is, if it's not measured, it's not managed. It couldn't be more true. If I don't know where stuff is coming from, I couldn't possibly tell you to put more money in an area. If you came to me and said, I know nothing about marketing, we're not doing marketing, but I know we want to grow, we can create the strategy based on your market, your industry, who you're selling, what you're selling, et cetera, based on our experience working with dozens upon dozens of companies and producing similar results. But even still, we come with a strategy. As we look at the performance, the measurements, we then make micro pivot adjustments. All right, guys, head over to YouTube, hit the subscribe button. If you're watching this on replay, put a comment in. I will try and answer it if I get notified, and I will see you on the next one.